Hi, I'm Ken Conte. I've been turning for 14 years, and I've been a member of the AAW and my local chapter, the Woodturners of Olympia, for the same 14 years. This video accompanies my article in American Woodturner on levitating spheres. This is the basic electromagnet system that I've been using. It's made by a company called Lusya, L-U-S-Y-A. They call it their 500-gram magnetic levitation module. It has a weight capacity of 500 grams. It can hold 500 grams up on the levitating magnet, which is about 17.5 ounces. It's made up of 4 components. The basic electromagnet unit actually consists of 4 individual electromagnets, and it has LED lights that are equally spaced across the diameter of it. The LED lights serve a couple of purposes. In some applications, the LED lights are used to light up the object that's floating above it. They're also helpful in learning how to get the levitating magnet to levitate above it. So the first component is the electromagnet itself. Second component is a disc magnet that floats above the electromagnet. It's 2 inches in diameter, about 5 centimeters. And then it has an AC adapter, and it has a wire that plugs into the bottom of the electromagnet, which is just used to plug the AC adapter into the unit. So this is the core electromagnet base. I'm going to turn it over so that I can plug in the little adapter for the AC power, and you can see that that's right here. These are fairly delicate pieces of equipment with very small fittings, so I try to not plug it in and unplug it any more often than I have to, but basically this fits right in here. And I also have just a little piece of foam underneath it because I want to protect the electronics on the base of the magnet. So now the plug has been attached, and now I'm going to plug in the AC adapter so that we can actually get power to it. And there you go, and you can see that the LED lights are all lighting up now. Another important thing to know is that these are pretty fragile magnets, and they're very powerful magnets. So when you're learning how to use this, it's very easy for the levitating magnet to slip out of your hands and come crashing down on the base, and if that happens, it can damage it. So to protect the magnet, the base magnet, I am just going to use a thin piece of cardboard. It's actually mat board, and I'm going to put that over the top of it in order to protect it. The levitating magnet is right here, and you can see that it's 2 inch in diameter. It's about 3/8 of an inch thick, and it has a bottom. Smaller magnet on the bottom of it, which will be important when you actually incorporate this into a sphere. But that is the bottom, that faces the electromagnetic base. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cradle this in my fingers. I'm going to come over here, and with my 2 little fingers I'm going to hold the base steady. Then I'm going to slowly bring the levitating magnet down and get it hovering over the electromagnet. You see now that the LED lights are flashing on and off, and they help you locate the levitation spot. When those lights are all on, you know you're close. It's important to practice this because once you have the 2 pieces incorporated into a wood-turned piece, you won't have the benefit of the LED lights. So you really need to be able to do this by feel and not have the LED lights to help you out. And then you can actually just feel the electromagnet stop pulling the levitating magnet in any direction, and it just begins to float in your fingers, and then you can pull your hand away. And now it's levitating. Once it's in the levitating position, it's really quite stable, and this is what you can do with electromagnets that you cannot just do with regular dipole magnets. If I push it a little bit, it bounces back into place, and it will stay this way literally for hours. Also notice that there's quite a bit of space between the electromagnet and the levitating magnet. I can slip my finger in here, and that's probably a good 3/4 of an inch plus a little bit more when you consider the thickness of the cover, the protective cover I have down here. But that's actually pretty good. Now this is with the magnet alone. When you add weight to the magnet, it will push the levitating magnet down and you'll lose some of that space. So this is the magnet levitating above the base. And I just want to demonstrate what happens if you slide wood in between the two. This is about a 1/4 inch piece of plywood, and I'm going to slide it in here. It doesn't affect the levitation, and the important thing to notice is that the levitating magnet is in the exact same position. So when you slide wood in between the two, it doesn't change the positioning of the two magnets, it simply fills up the space. And that's really an important factor when you start planning a project, because you're going to want as little wood between the two magnets as you possibly can in order to maximize the visual impact of the levitation. So when you make a base, it has to be very thin over the electromagnet, and when you incorporate the levitating magnet into a sphere, you have to have it as close to the surface at the bottom of the sphere as you can without breaking through. I want to take just a minute to show you how to locate the magnet in the bottom of the sphere. I mentioned before how important it is that you have as little wood as possible between the two magnets. So you need to place the levitating magnet in the bottom of the sphere as close to the surface as you can without breaking through. One good way to do that is with a template like this. This is basically the bottom half of a 4.5 inch diameter sphere. And I've put the magnet in place to give you a sense for how close you can get. The areas of concern are right here on the edges, because if you're going to break through the edge of the sphere, that's where it's going to happen. And in order to locate the magnet, you hold it on the template with whatever space you're comfortable with, 1/8 of an inch or so at this point, and then you measure the distance from the bottom of the sphere down here to the bottom of the magnet. That distance tells you where to place the magnet in the sphere when you are making it. So I want to show you now just a typical base piece, getting into the wood turning aspects of this project. This is a base that's very similar to the one that's featured in the article. It's essentially an inverted bowl. But the key thing on the base, again, is the thinness of the wood over the electromagnet. So you can see that I've turned a concave depression in the base here. And in this center area, this is really less than 1/8 of an inch thickness. And this will be directly over the electromagnet, and the sphere will levitate directly over this spot. So that's the very thin area, and that's what you want in order to keep as much open space between the two magnets as possible. Turning the base over now, you can see the two recesses. The electromagnet sits in this recess. The top of the electromagnet is right here, very, very close, if not touching the wood. And this recess here is used to attach the electromagnet to the base. You also use this as an expansion tenon when you finish the top. And then finally, there's the little carve out here to accommodate the AC adapter plug. And it's been flattened on this back side a little bit so that you can hold the plug in place. And that's really a very basic sphere. I'll show you a few that I've made variations on this theme in a little bit. But this is fundamentally the basic base that you would use with a very thin area just over the electromagnet. This is the base and sphere that are featured in the journal article, and it's figured maple. Both of them are figured maple. You can see on the top of the base that it's concave at top, and the very center is really less than 1/8 of an inch. You may be able to tell when I tap on it. If I pick it up and turn it over, then you can see the electromagnet in place. It's attached, it's screwed into place using the 4 tabs that are made for that purpose. And the adapter plug is held in place by just a little piece of laminate that's screwed into the back of the base. So I'm going to plug the unit in now with the AC adapter in the back. And on this piece, I want to show you how to get the sphere levitating, because it's a little bit more of a challenge when you don't have those LED lights. The first thing you have to do is figure out, well, where is the magnet in the sphere? And the way to do that is to just take a piece of metal, something that's magnetic, hold it carefully, because if it comes flying out of your hands, it will put a dent in the sphere. And I can tell you that because I speak from experience. But I'm going to take this metal and kind of cradle it. I'm going to cushion it so that my fingers are against the sphere, but the metal's very close to it. And I'm just going to run it on the outside of the sphere until I find the magnet. And I've found the magnet. It's right there on the bottom. Now I can pull this away. I'm going to cradle the magnet, the sphere, like I did the levitating magnet earlier. And I'm going to bring this down to the surface, right into the center of that depression. And now I can feel the electromagnets trying to pull it in different directions. And I'm going to just gently move the sphere around until it settles into place. And then I'll pull my hands away and it's levitating. And you can see once it's levitating, it's fairly stable. Some of these magnets spin on their own and some don't, but there is so little friction that if you start it spinning, it will spin for a long time. And you can see here the importance of keeping the wood thin, because there's really not a great deal of space between the base and the sphere, even though I've kept the wood at the bottom of the sphere and over the top of the base as thin as I could. The factors that are in here are the thickness of the wood that is there, plus the weight of the sphere, because the heavier the sphere, the more it's going to push down towards the electromagnet. This is a little over 9 ounces in weight, which isn't really very heavy, but nonetheless, it makes a difference. So that's the piece that's featured in the article. On this piece, the base is Madrona burl, and the sphere is also Madrona. The base is finished with a wipe-on poly, and the sphere has a carnauba wax buffed finish. This is one of my favorite pieces. This one, the base is Madrona, and it started out as a hollow form, which was hollowed out from the bottom, where the electromagnet now rests, and then the sides were cut away to open the piece up. The sphere in this case is holly, and it's smaller than the other spheres, so I had to use a smaller levitating magnet. So the electromagnet system that is running this one is different, and it's a slightly smaller one than with less weight capacity than the others that you've seen. One of the things that I really like about this piece is that the sphere, which is made of holly, is actually a threaded box. So you can reach in and pull it out, and you can open a box up. And so you can see that it's actually a threaded box. This is a very different piece. This particular piece uses a different type of electromagnet, which actually sits above the sphere. So in this case, the electromagnet is up here, and the levitating magnet that is in the sphere is at the very top of the sphere. All of the same principles apply in terms of keeping as little wood as possible between the two magnets. But this magnet is often called a pull-up magnet, because rather than pushing the levitating object up from beneath, this magnet pulls it up and holds it in a stable position. And so, this one rotates very nicely And as I mentioned earlier, because of so little friction, they will rotate for a very long time. But you can see that, that it's a different concept. I've had a difficult time finding a good source of these electromagnets that sit overhead. So I haven't made very many of these, but it's quite a fun way to do it. And I think there's lots of possibilities for how to incorporate a magnet overhead of your sphere.
Go ahead and rotate it a little bit here while it's zooming in. Oh yeah. Oh.
Thanks for viewing the video. I hope it's given you a good idea of how these levitation pieces work, and maybe even an idea or two for your next project. Thank you.